Welcome back to Eddie's Launchpads, the Dogsthorpe Infant School podcast for parents, carers, teachers and schools. Dogsthorpe Infant School is part of Hampton Academies Trust. We want every child to dream, believe and shine.
OK, Eddie, start the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
This podcast is brought to you by Eddie Edster, the Dogsthorpe Infant School Wellbeing Dog.
Our guest today is Joshua Seigal. He's a highly acclaimed award-winning professional poet, author and performer, and he is bringing some wonderful resources that we're offering to schools right across the country. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's very, very lovely and exciting to be asked to be on here. Thank you.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all, and what inspires you to write and offer the things that you do for schools?
I'm Joshua Seigal. I am a London dweller, so I live in a flat in London with my wife, Carrie, and a cat called Bluebell. And Bluebell provides quite a lot of inspiration for my writing. What I write is poetry. I'm a professional poet. And along with that, I'm a performer. So I don't just write poetry books. I do write poetry books, but I don't only offer those books. I perform my poems. So that involves maybe kind of a bit of stand-up comedy type stuff, bringing my poems to life for a variety of different ages. And I visit lots of schools. I spend my time visiting schools, children of all different ages. I'm based in London, but I travel virtually. So I do Zooms, I do Microsoft Teams. I travel around and I visit schools and I do performances. I do creative writing workshops and I have a lot of fun with words. I think you asked what inspires me. I think the main thing that inspires me is my love of words and bringing those words to life. So that is basically what I am lucky enough to be able to do as a real life professional job.
Have you always had that gift?
I think I've always loved words, and I've always been fascinated by different combinations of words, different sounds of words. I've always loved words. But when I was a child, I honestly didn't really have that much of an idea what I wanted to do as a career. When I was in about year 4, a very, very famous poet called Michael Rosen came to visit my school. Obviously, pretty much all of your listeners will have heard of him. And what I gathered from him was that words can really be brought to life. So he does write books, but he also is a performer. I describe myself as a performer. And Michael Rosen is very much a performer. So he came to our school and he made us laugh in assembly with his stories and with his jokes and with his poems. And he really brought words to life. So I think I've always known, not necessarily that I've wanted to be a poet, but that I've always wanted to be someone who does something with words and performance in some capacity.
One of our 3 early years classes and reception class is named after Michael Rosen class.
Fantastic.
Welcome all you children who are listening and your parents and carers who listen to this. If you're in Rosen class, now you know why it's called Rosen class. I'm sure your teacher would have told you before. But here we've got Joshua has met or has seen and heard the wonderful Michael Rosen, who's offered so much for schools across the country and around the world. You say children of all ages, so does that include early years up to Key Stage 2?
No, it includes early years up to Key Stage 5, really.
Brilliant, brilliant.
So I do. I have got books, a couple of books specifically for early years. My first specifically early years book is called Little Lima Laughing. Lemurs, incidentally, are one of my favourite animals. And the title Little Lemur Laughing, a nice little bit of alliteration there.
Yeah.
And that was published by Bloomsbury in 2017. So that is it's not just early years, it's early years and Key Stage 1. And I've got another book for early years and Key Stage 1, which is called Yapping Away. And that was published by Bloomsbury in, I think, 2021, if I'm not mistaken. But I've got books. Most of my published material is primary school, really. But I've worked with kids and young people of all different ages. I've helped out with the unseen poetry part of the GCSE syllabus. When I used to do some work in a secondary school in Newham, that was from 2014 to 2017. I was actually there. I was very lucky to be their poet in residence. So I worked with poetry right across the curriculum in that school, which was really, really wonderful. But when I say children of all ages, I really mean all ages, sort of 0 to 18, really, and beyond. I write for grown-ups as well. I don't necessarily view there as being I don't necessarily view there as being a very clear-cut distinction between children's poetry and adults' poetry. I think good poetry is basically just good poetry. And so I don't necessarily work with hard and fast distinctions.
If you, bearing in mind we've got listeners who listen in across Hampton Academies Trust, we may have listeners. Yes, indeed. Hello. We may have people who are listening from Hampton College, for example, who we go right up to sixth form. So are you saying that you can offer things for those schools as well?
I can. I would say the stuff which is in my books is pretty much maybe up to year 7 and 8. But there are things which I can offer. I think one thing which might be quite interesting, which I've never actually done, but I've always kind of quite wanted to do, is give careers talks. Because when I was at school, when I was in sixth form, it was always very much go to university, get a job, and by job, a traditional kind of job where you have an employer. I was never taught anything about what it is like being self-employed, which I am. And I wasn't really informed that was even an option. I wasn't really prepared for any kind of career in the arts necessarily. It was always quite traditional, accountancy, law, medicine, those really traditional careers. So I've always kind of fancied talking about that kind of thing with people who are themselves thinking about which job or career they would be going into. But if someone wants me in their school based on my published material, I would say primary school primarily. And my performances are very much geared towards early years, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, maybe the lower end of Key Stage 3 as well.
Well, there we are, folks. If you're in a Peterborough school or even further afield, wherever you're listening to this, if you want to get in touch, there'll be in the text of this podcast, there will be a particular place for you to click so you can get hold of Joshua and get in contact with him. So whether you're a school that's thinking about having a careers discussion, or whether you're a primary school thinking about how you can inspire your children in poetry, here is a wonderful performer and someone who can help you with this work. Now, let's talk about some of your books. You mentioned them very briefly. Can we? You've mentioned the early years. What other books are you offering and resources?
So one of my most popular books, which is also the first book that I had published in 2016 by Bloomsbury, has a very interesting title. I decided to call that book I Don't Like Poetry. And it's based on an individual poem, which is called I Don't Like Poetry. Maybe before the end of the session, you can remind me to actually read that poem out online, which I'm very happy to do. But I called the book I Don't Like Poetry, firstly, because I thought it would be a weird, kind of interesting, catchy title for people to pick up a book and see a book called I Don't Like Poetry. I thought that would be a really interesting way of grabbing people's attention. But it's also intended to be the kinds of poetry for people that don't normally read poetry, and I visit lots of schools, and often teachers tell me that they're a bit afraid of poetry. They're not really sure how to teach it. It was always kind of viewed as a very specialized enterprise when they were at school. So they're not really sure how to approach poetry. So I kind of write poetry that's accessible, approachable, enjoyable, but at the same time, not very much not dumbing down. So really not compromising on quality and wordplay and complexity, but very accessible at the same time. So that book's called I Don't Like Poetry, and that may still be my most popular book. Then there was Little Lima Laughing, which is a similar ethos, but aimed at early years and Key Stage 1. And then I've got several other books published by Bloomsbury, the latest being a book that I'm very fond of. The book's called Who Let the Words Out? And that really goes back to what I was saying towards the beginning, all about words and wordplay. The focus of that book is wordplay and introducing children to a really, really wide vocabulary. So vocabulary plays a huge role in that book. There's a lot of very strange words which children will almost certainly need a dictionary in order to understand and read. But at the same time, I really want the book to be fun and accessible and enjoyable. So those are the sorts of books that I'm offering schools. And they were great fun to read and perform. You know, a lot of it's very heavily based on performance, and they were great fun to write. And I'm really hoping schools enjoy them. I should say, I take great pride in offering my website as a free resource to schools. You mentioned just before we went on air that you've been taking a look at my website. My website is joshuaseigal.co.uk. Joshua is Joshua. Seigal is Seigal, very important to include the I. It's a unique spelling, seigal.co.uk. I offer lots of poems as free resources on that website. So both poems that are written and poems in video form, and that's absolutely free. And I made the website myself, and I take a lot of pride in offering that as a free resource. So teachers, children, parents, check out my books, please do, but also check out my website as well. That would be a great honour.
I'll be honest with you, Joshua, I hadn't heard of you until we conversed by email, and I thought, I'm going to check this guy out. And as soon as I got to the website, I thought, I've got to get this guy on soon. I've got to get him on.
Right.
Because
that's exactly
that website is
the kind of effects that I'm hoping the website has.
Yeah, the website, listeners, is well worth a visit. So even if you missed all those details, don't worry. Go into the text of this podcast, and it'll be just there, one click. And you'll get hold of this fantastic website and all these great resources. Now, you promised us, you tempted us with reading your book. Could you give us a little poem? Give us
I'm gonna read a poem called I Don't Like Poetry. This is the title poem of my first book, which was also called I Don't Like Poetry. You'll have to excuse me for a second. I'm just going on my website so I can get the words for the poem up on my screen, because I am very bad and I don't necessarily know it off by heart. So this poem is called I Don't Like Poetry. It's quite special because I should say this poem does not rhyme. Many of my poems do rhyme, but this poem doesn't rhyme. It's called I Don't Like Poetry. Are you ready for me to start?
Please do.
It goes like this. I don't like similes. Every time I try to think of one, my brain feels like a vast empty desert. My eyes feel like raisins floating in an ocean. My fingers feel like sweaty sausages. I don't like metaphors. Whenever I attempt them, a hammer starts beating in my chest. Lava starts bubbling in my veins. Zombies have a fight in my stomach. I don't like alliteration. We learnt about it in school, but it's seriously, stupendously silly, definitely drastically difficult, terribly, troublingly tricky. I don't like onomatopoeia. I wish I could blow it up with a zap and a bang and a crash, a boom and a clang and a pow, a clash and a bam and a thud. And I don't like repetition. I don't like repetition. I don't like repetition. Do we have much longer? I'll keep going until the end. I don't. I'm joking. We can finish the poem there. Obviously, that poem is a poem of infinite length. And it's intended to kind of introduce people to all those fabulous poetic techniques and terms, but in a really fun, slightly subversive, and hopefully interesting way.
How long do you perform? I don't like repetition.
Normally, I say it about 4 times, and then children start to clock, hopefully, what's actually going on in the poem.
Brilliant.
If I'm going for a little bit more comic effects, I might go on a bit longer. I might take a pause, and people clap, and then I say I've not finished, and then I carry on. So it really depends on the audience.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. Thank you for all you do and all you offer in schools, because it's people like you that help our teachers in so many wonderful ways. So
and people like teachers that help me out in so many wonderful ways.
True.
By inviting me in and providing me with a means to pay the bills.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, there we go. So we've thanked everybody and we thanked one another. Thank you for all you do. The website details I'll make sure in the text.
Please do.
What have you got? You may not be able to tell us this because publishers are very funny people and they don't like you talking about future books until they're actually out. But what have you got planned for the future other than your school visits?
So I have written another book, which is I've completed that. I've signed the contract on it. I'm not entirely sure when it will be released, but the idea is to have released it by at some point, I think, next year, so 2026. And the focus of that book, I'm not going to share any of the material, but the focus of that book is all about mental health.
Brilliant.
Poems that are intended to maybe raise us up when we feel a bit down, using humour, using wit and wordplay and laughter, as in the other books, but also through kind of moments of quiet reflection. I'm often known and often marketed as a kind of funny poet, and I've won, if I'm not blowing my own trumpet too much, I've won something called the Laugh Out Loud's Book Awards. I've won that twice. It used to be known as the Roald Dahl Funny Prize, quite a well-known prize. I've won that twice, and I'm often kind of in publicity, I'm often kind of explained as a funny poet, which I hope I am, but my next book is really intended to kind of, as well as that, to showcase very much another side to the work, which is quiet, gentle, reflective, maybe a little bit sad at points.
It's a very, very important subject, and it's very timely that it's coming out. Perhaps when it's out, you'd like to come back onto the launch pads, and we'd love to see you back have you back on the show and tell us more about it.
I would love to do that. The book still doesn't have a title,
No.
but I'll let you know when it does.
Please do.
There's currently about 2 or 3 titles in consideration. And I'd really love. I'd love to come back on and talk a little bit more about that. Absolutely, that would be brilliant.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Joshua. Now, if people, obviously, there's your website. If people want to get hold of your books, where's the best place for them to go?
The best place for them to go. I used to sell them myself via the website, but that became a absolute logistical nightmare. I would say probably the best place is the Bloomsbury the Bloomsbury website. Obviously, there's Amazon and Waterstones and any online bookstore. Maybe try and get it via a local bookshop, I would say. If you want a list of my publications, there's a section of my website called Books where you can click, and that has a complete list of all the books that I've got published. If you click on those links, I think that will take you to a link to the Bloomsbury website where you can hopefully have some books and buy them and take a look at them. And I think they are available, as they say, through all good bookshops.
Thank you very much for your time today. There we are, listeners. Wherever you're listening in the world, you're just one click away from Joshua with these fantastic resources for children of all ages. And remember, we're not just talking to the teachers here. That's very, very important to get teachers and teaching assistants to think about getting these books for their classes. But it's also you mums, dads, nans and granddads. If you're thinking about getting a book that maybe will inspire children to take up poetry, maybe for the first time.
As I said, especially if you think your child might not like poetry. Or especially if they've explicitly said, I don't like poetry.
Yeah.
That would be a really good reason for you to check out my poetry books and my website.
Well, there we are, folks. Go on to the text of this podcast. See what you can do by clicking on that link and getting to Joshua's website. Joshua, spell
my name correctly as well. It's Seigal.
There we go.
A lot of people I've been in schools where the teachers have spelt it wrong. A lot of people get it wrong.
Easily done, especially when there used to be a film star with a very similar sort of name.
And it's spelt differently as well.
It is.
It's not spelt the same as Steven Seigal.
Okay, thanks for your time today, Joshua.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that's it for another week, folks. Captain Dave and Eddie will be back again soon with another Launchpad. They'll have more great guests, more places to see, and more interesting things to share on the learning journey. So, be kind, be respectful, and always remember to dream, believe, and shine.